Well, even though Legends of Runeterra is still in the process of trying to figure out which way it wants to go, which is underlined by the game slowly removing features, such as labs, and then forgetting to remove the daily quest that asks you to do labs. Well, it is still dishing out cards, which also means it is dishing out new lore. And in the new card set, they tackled a lore joke that has been part of the game ever since the original release of Aatrox. That would be June 2013, or 11 years ago if you wanna feel old. When Aatrox was first teased, it was done through the roleplay of Ezreal, who talked to the players on League's forums. There, as he showed everyone the artifacts he found, he also flashed his picture with Lux. And since then, the Lux and Ezreal train kept rolling. But every time it was referenced, it was only referenced from Ezreal's point of view. He always teased that he met Lux, but Lux never responded to that, which was also eventually reflected in Legends of Runeterra.
Hi, I'm Lux. No, wait, that's you.
Sorry, do I know you?
But before we got to that point, this storyline had quite an awesome setup. This all started during the times when Riot was still using the interactive map. They added points around the map which marked Ezreal's journey. He was simply traveling around the world collecting more artifacts. And eventually he would run into Mordekaiser's cultists who were trying to resurrect him. It's kinda awesome how this setup, which happened 6 years ago, eventually led to this. Anyway, on these travels, Ezreal also visited Demacia. So naturally, everyone thought this is when he met Lux. But until today, we never actually had any confirmations. At least none that would be 100%. What we did get 6 years ago is this note that started a whole new adventure. Rumor has it, a certain Demacian national treasure, one Jarro Lightfeather, was born around here. Perhaps you've heard of him. This was quite interesting, because we have never heard this name before. It was almost like Riot was teasing a new legendary character. But shortly after this, Ezreal got his VGU, which also came in with his voice lines. And there, we learned the truth.
I use a fake name in Demacia. Jarro Lightfeather. Sentinel of Light, 8th Order. He's a national hero.
That's right, we learned that Jarro Lightfeather was a made-up character. One that Ezreal played himself when he was visiting Demacia, and that was for a very obvious reason. I mean, Demacians were not the biggest fans of mages, so he had to keep a low profile. But unfortunately, it was teased that his profile was so low, even though he got to meet Lux, Lux did not know who he was. Which is where this entire situation sat for a while. But that all changed with the latest expansion to Legends of Runeterra, where the legendary Jarro Lightfeather appeared as a card. Although there are quite a few twists to this one. Now obviously, since it is in Demacia, it is related to the new champion version of Lux. So we have to go through that one first. Just by looking at this new version, you can see that Lux is casting magic in Demacia and everyone is just happy. On one side, it should tell you that this is happening after the events of the Mageseeker, when Demacians got a lot more relaxed around magic. But then, you look into the background. And now you can see some tentacles creeping out from the shadows, as well as some really creepy figures. Which tells you that this is not exactly what we would expect. This is in fact not reality. Which is quite sad, because I was excited to see more of modern day Demacia after the Mageseeker. But instead, this is in fact a dream. And we know this because of Lilia, who joined Legends of Runeterra. In her cards, we learned that she is in the Garden of Forgetting, which you may remember from Ahri's story. This is where she tried to dump out the memories of her murdering her lovers. And here, Lilia was harvesting dewdrops from a tree at the heart of this garden. Now, from one of the other cards, we learned that these dewdrops collect dreams from all over Runeterra. But lately, these dreams have been corrupted by a shadow. So to help with that, the Spritelings, which are spirits native to the gardens, enter the dewdrops to guide the dreamers through the dreams. What's kinda cool about all of this is that this is likely also giving some lore to the sprites from TFT. Anyway, remember that all of these are just corrupted dreams. And with that, everything will start to make sense. So let's start with the card of Lux herself. Lights whirled and arced around Luxana as the city looked on in wonder. Here she was, Demasia's Lady of Light, an upstanding young crown guard and a talented mage. Here, Demacia was everything she had always wanted it to be. Again, this is just a dream, so here, Lux was dreaming about what Demacia could become one day. Funnily enough though, she didn't know that Demacia was already quite close to this scenario. So here you can see that Lux has a new staff that seems to be inspired by the Crown Guard sigil, which is a bit sad because she got the old staff from a mage during the Mage Rebellion. Anyway, this one also reminds me of archangels, but I assume that is just a coincidence. Now, if you look back, you may see some familiar faces from other cards. And some of these characters even look like Yordles, which is not too unthinkable after the events of the Mage Seeker. There is even one that seems to have 4 hands, which could be either a Vastaya or it could be part of the corrupted dream. Because again, there is some corruption in the background. And in her level up, you can see that Lux is actually fighting all of these shadows. And seemingly, she doesn't even need help from the spritelings. The quote here says, "I am Luxana, Lady of Light, and I am not afraid. You may try to twist my Demacia into nightmare and drown it in darkness, but there is no shadow I cannot outshine." And as to where she is fighting these shadows? Well, we learned that this takes place in the Patricide Halls, which is very likely part of the Mage Seeker compound. And based on the quote, it seems like she visited this place after she walked past the crowd outside. The cheers of the crowd faded as she entered the hall. The statues looked on in silence. Darkness awaited, but she could not turn back. Who else could prevent Demacia's descent into nightmare? As you can see, this is a very twisted place, one full of references. First of all, on the left side, you can see a corrupted statue of Diana Crownguard. She unfortunately had to give Lux some hard time in the past. So it makes sense why the nightmares would go for this. You can also see all the hands all around the room crawling towards the light. In a way, it mimics all the prisoners who were locked right below this place. And interestingly enough, the one statue that is not corrupted here is the one in the middle. And ladies and gentlemen, that is not the statue of Garen, but indeed it is his father, Peter Crownguard. We know this because it perfectly mimics his original concept in Legends of Runeterra. And it makes sense why this one would not be corrupted. This is in Lux's dream, her mind made up all of this. In a separate card, she even confirms that she doesn't remember this statue of Diana even existing. Which also means that she imagined the statue of their father as pure. It is possible her will alone was enough to not let the shadows corrupt it. And the last thing we can mention here are the birds. It could be just symbolism as they are flying towards the light too, or it could be crows. More on that in a moment. Now, after venturing further into the compound, she eventually finds the aberrant Mage Seeker, who is standing in the same hall where Diana's card took place. And this one says, "Lady Crownguard." The Mage Seeker materialized out of the shadows, extending a hand towards her. His entreating smile seemed too wide for his half-obscured face. "Why don't you follow me?" Which is likely where Lux gets to fight all the shadows and she purges them all. But before that, there are actually 2 more interesting cards. There is one for Dreamlit Alina, a young follower of Lux's magic. "When I was your age, I was so afraid of the light. I didn't have anyone to tell me that my magic was a gift, that it was given to me for a reason. But you have me to tell you now. So don't be afraid, Alina. Let it shine." Again, since this is all a dream, it is likely that Lux is just imagining helping Alina. But there is also the probability that this is the dream of Alina herself, because it all ties to a quote of Alina in the Lumino sprite. "Come on, Mr. Sprite, let's burn away these creepy shadows." See, finally we got to see some of the sprites entering these dreams. And while in the card it is Lux holding this lantern with the sprite, it makes sense why it would be Alina's quote. It's because Lux became so powerful with her light that she doesn't need the help. But if the shadows are corrupting the dreams of everyone else too, it would make sense for Alina to need help from them. So here we can finally see the sprites helping. But of course, eventually Lux defeats the shadows, which gives us this final card. The cheers of the crowd swelled as her radiance washed over their upturned faces. She had only ever sought to uplift and support her people, and they supported her in return. Voices rising in chant of adoration. Luxana. So all is good, evil is banished, we got the good ending. Oh yeah, we forgot about him. A young man in masquerade mask manifested before her, with a flourish of rose petals and luminescent creatures. The name's Lightfeather. Jarro Lightfeather, he says. I was told you might be in need of some assistance, my lady. See, this one is quite funny, because you can see Jarro Lightfeather surrounded by the sprites, which means it is indeed happening in Lux's dream. However, there are still two different reasons for this to be happening. On one side, because he or she is dreaming of Jarro Lightfeather, she did indeed meet Ezreal in Demacia, because she remembers him, but she doesn't know who Ezreal is. She only knows Jarro Lightfeather, so his disguise was way too good. Although, even though he manifested before her, Lux still doesn't know who he is. So there could be the second reason for Jarro Lightfeather to be in her dream. See, as was described here, he manifested in the dream with the sprites, after which he then asks Lux if she needs his assistance. So I believe it was the sprites who entered the corrupted dream and they used Jarro Lightfeather as a form to help Lux. Now this one can get a lot more complex, because it is possible that because they are dealing with dreams, perhaps Ezreal was dreaming of Lux and so the sprites used his dream to enter Lux's dream. I'm starting not to like this dream invasion anymore. And all this is doing is spawning more theories. Well, regardless, this is still a funny new addition to the lore of Jarro Lightfeather. However, we are still not done with the cards, because there is still the question of where did these shadows come from. You see, Demacia already has a bit of history with nightmares and insomnia. That's because Nocturne has haunted Demacia for quite a while. And as it happens to be, eventually it was Lux who banished him. So on one side, people believe that Riot is teasing the fact that Nocturne will also get an updated champion just like Lux. From the lore's perspective, it would absolutely make sense. But others believe that this is teasing entirely different demon that would become a card in Legends of Runeterra. One tied to creepy hands and crows. That's right, since in his cinematic he also appeared in Demacia, there is the possibility that it might be Fiddlesticks. But I kinda find it unlikely, because Fiddlesticks was never tied to dreams. He literally just goes to you and kills you. Not to mention, the shadows here are quite sentient. Or more than that, they are very self-aware. All that Fiddlesticks does is just mimic sounds he can hear, and then he murders you. But on top of that, there is also this interaction from Jarro Lightfeather.
I don't trust the likes of you, sir.
But you know me. You've always known me.
I am not assured that you are a mage seeker at all.
Yeah, the skin. It itches.
See, this makes me feel like it's neither of them. The response this one had was far too self-aware. Like it didn't even like its own form. More than Nocturne or Fiddlesticks, it feels far closer to something like Tahm Kench or Evelynn. So in the end, it is possible that we are getting an entirely new demon. Something similar to what Pantheon fought in his cards. And thankfully, Legends of Runeterra is really good at giving us demons. But there you have it, another banger of a set of cards that is heading to Legends of Runeterra. On one side, I am still a bit sad that these are just a dream. and that we didn't get to see more of modern-day Demacia after the Mage Seeker. But at the same time, I'm just happy that we got some more lore on Jarro Lightfeather, who is still using his outdated glove. Like, guys, you redesigned this one like 6 years ago.